Let's talk about the Joint Commission and the role a Joint Commission plays in reviewing a hospital's performance.
Thank you.
Mr. Hunter.
Good afternoon, Dr. Bork. Good afternoon, Mr. Hunter.
I thought you said you didn't have a report.
I don't know, sir. You're not
listening.
Perhaps I'm not being clear today. I do not have access to the 2018 report.
That sound was Hunter's soul leaving his body.
I thought I buried this Dracula several years ago.
But you have an opinion to a reasonable management probability that the failure of the medical executive committee to address this caused or contributed to the harm of Mike Walski.
Objection. Beyond scope.
You can answer.
Thank you. I do believe that this failure on the part of the governing body contributed.
And this particular individual happens to also be remarkably charismatic and have phenomenal hair to combine with my, I guess, phenomenal beard.
At 2, Rob, you're going to jump on the good hair stuff too? Really?
Dude, why not? I mean, I can't keep this thing in order.
Thank you for that. And speaking of looking fabulous, coming to the program right now, Dr. Joe Corcoran, who we have also labeled here as Dr. Good Hair. How are you?
I'm great. Can you? Well, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. It feels like I've been gone forever. And in a sense I was, but I will tell you, as terrific as my time away was, and I'll more about that in a moment, really happy to be back and really happy to be reconnecting with the advocates. I know that Gothic Brina, one of our moderators, probably my busiest moderator, she was in several other live stream chat rooms and ran into many of you, and you were asking, where is the guy? He just disappeared. And I had told the audience last month that I was invited to go back to Florence, Italy, which is, candidly, it's one of my favorite cities in the world. Just from a visual standpoint, first of all, the entire region of Tuscany looks very much like maybe the Smoky Mountains in eastern Tennessee, the Skyline Drive of this beautiful state of Virginia, the rolling hills of West Virginia, that whole part of Appalachia. It's absolutely drop dead gorgeous. But what's neat about Florence in particular is, at one point it was the capital of Italy. And so there is literally a 2,000-year-old culture there. And much of current Florence was built 1,200 years ago by some of the, great ruling families of the time, the Medicis in particular. And so there's this tremendous amount of history, this tremendous commitment to art. Visually, it's beautiful. It's hard to get a bad meal there, as you could tell if I panned out and showed you my physique. But I will also tell you that I and my entire family got to enjoy a tremendous trip and got to enjoy real farm to table food in its purest form. I think we ate more than we've ever eaten, and I don't think anybody put on a quarter of a pound. The food was just that good. I know Gothic Brina has a photograph to share. Oh, here it is. Thank you. This is left to right. You recognize the guy with the good hair. The young guy with the even better hair is my son, and then my beautiful wife, the gregarious Greek goddess, and our amazingly creative daughter. We got to travel together for 2.5 full weeks, and got to do some amazing things. We we visited not only Florence, but some of the most beautiful parts of Italy, northern Italy at least. Portofino. We were on the island of Elba, where Napoleon was briefly exiled before he tried to overtake Waterloo and met his demise. But we saw some phenomenally gorgeous parts of the world. And saw some incredible art. We saw Michelangelo's David. We saw paintings by the great masters, the great Italian masters of the Renaissance, and it was really remarkable. We actually had an opportunity to go to the Grand Prix in Monaco. That was pretty special. But I will tell you, one of the things that I realized during this trip was that the highlight of the trip for me was spending time with those three folks in this photograph with me. Patty and I consider ourselves to be incredibly blessed. We have children that, for better or for worse, we've given them a lot of latitude. As a cranky neighbor in Denny's told us one morning, you give those children entirely too many choices. But that was how we raised them. We wanted them to be independent. We wanted them to be confident. We wanted them to be able to cut their own meat, to make decisions. And now they're both in college. The frightening thing for me is that I've been reading a lot about, on average, parents spend 90% of their lifetime's time with their children before their children turn 18. So 90% of what you see in this photograph, on average, for most families, 90% of that together time is gone. And I will tell you, that's not a good statistic for me, because they are my joy. They are what, my wife, my children are what really are fundamental to my happiness. And seeing the kids so much more mature, so much more capable, so much more adult, was tremendous. On the flight, we had to change planes in Paris at Charles de Gaulle. It wasn't me that got us from the one plane to the next. It was my daughter. And she navigated it. She'd never been there before, but she navigated it as if she had been, as if it was as familiar as changing planes in Atlanta on a Delta flight. She saw that there were interactive kiosks, big TV screens, and she just boop, 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 went over, figured it out, got us there. No effort. It made it look like it was no effort. I heard conversations that both she and my son were involved in, and they were grown-up conversations. And both of them made great eye contact, speaking with folks that they met, many of whom were not only older but decidedly older. Their handshakes were firm. That's the feedback that I got. It was really tremendous. It made my heart very, very full. And so, again, one of the things that I realized on this trip, aside from I want to spend more time in Italy, it was really the value and the importance of prioritizing time with your family. I'm sure Patty gets fed up with me, tired of me, because for the most of the year, it's just we two in this house. We are empty nesters. But so she probably has her fill and then some. But I got to be honest with you, I was eager to wake up in my own bed. I was far less eager to wind down the vacation, wind down the travel with Patty and the kids, because we had them mostly screens down. for probably 18 hours a day. They're old enough to where they don't sleep in mom and dad's room anymore. So, traveling with adult kids, my sister said it best. She said it's like traveling with a couple that you really, really enjoy spending time with, but picking up their tab for absolutely everything. And that's how I feel about traveling with as a family. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. And the reason why I'm sharing so much about the family trip, number one, was to explain that I wasn't just ditching the advocates. I wasn't just ignoring my responsibility to this community and this channel. But it was for what I consider a good reason, what I would consider the right reason. It also ties into a conversation that I started during the members only streams in the first week of May, which we'll be repeating probably within the next 10 days, 2 weeks. So I would encourage you to keep an eye out. If you are a member, keep an eye out for those invitations. Really enjoyed the members only streams last month, trying to make them more interactive for the Junes. But one of the things that we started a conversation about during the members only streams was the science of happiness. And I talked about a book that was written by one of my favorite authors, and I'll put links up to the books that I mentioned because I think they're really good reading and super helpful. And Tal was kind of the thought leader on campus at Harvard, who talked about the science of happiness. What does it take not only to become happy, but to sustain being happy? And he was interesting. He was an Israeli, who in his young life had the ambition to be a world champion at handball. And he trained and took coaching and practiced and practiced and practiced and competed and won and advanced. And at the age of 16, he truly did achieve world championship recognition in the sport of handball. And in the very first chapter of his book, he talks about how literally 2 days later, he felt this emptiness. The challenge was over. His goal had been reached. And while it made him elated in the moment, it wasn't sustainable. And so he goes on, as we discussed on the previous stream. I'm reviewing for those who didn't join, that there's a formula and a science behind happiness. And the biggest point that I raised in the members only call is that as you look at the variety of scientists who truly make an academic study of happiness, there's lots of different recipes, there's lots of different formulas, there's lots of different elements that have to come together to promote happiness for us. But of all the formulas and all the recipes, they share one common element. And that common element is gratitude, right? So it's the ability to say, right now, life feels like it's beating me up, but I have my health, I have my family, I have my whatever it is that makes you grateful. It's the ability to recognize that, the ability to acknowledge that, and the ability to be thankful for that. So, but the reason why I'm bringing it back is there is a lot of there's a lot of buzz right now. Oh, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Gothic Brina. You pulled up the book from the stream. So for those of you who are interested, Tal Ben Shahar, PhD from Harvard, wrote this book, I want to say in either 2009 or 2014. He wrote two different books, but I believe this was from 2009, and it's available on Amazon. It's an easy weekend read. If you read faster than my plodding pace, you can probably read it in a full day. But I will tell you that for me, this book was life-changing because it helped me to understand what I needed to do. I've always been an upbeat, glass half full, positive, optimistic, believe in the best in people. That's who I've been since I was a young kid. But this helped me understand, how do you not let that light dull even when it feels like life is ganging up on you? And trust me, we all have days, weeks, months where we feel that life has ganged up on us. We've all been through physical challenges, mental challenges, emotional challenges. This was really helpful to me, and I hope that it is helpful to you. And again, I'll set up a link so you can just click an order if you'd like. But there is Dr. Ben Shahar has moved to another university. There is another scientist who has followed in his footsteps and is really kind of breaking into some really cool territory. His name is Arthur Brooks, and some of you may have seen him. He's kind of making the rounds. I think he's got a new book, but he did a really interesting interview with Oprah Winfrey, and she doesn't do a lot of she doesn't do the Daily Show anymore. And when she does interviews, they tend to be deep and long form. And I really thought it was a very insightful thing. But Candace, let me block this out. So if you want to put up a picture of Dr. Brooks, that would be great. But he really talks about the two fundamental questions that you can challenge yourself with to figure out the source of your happiness, sustainable source of your happiness, really comes down to two things. Number one is asking yourself, why are you alive? What's your joie de vivre? What's your reason for living? Your raison d'etre, as the French would say. I don't speak French, but I've always loved that phrase. Why are you alive? And what would you die for today? I mean, those are big, big, big things to consider. No question about it. And those really sound pretty gruesome when you think about it. And he's a young guy. He's young by my age, by my standard. I believe that he's 59 years old. I know that he's not yet 60 years old. But he has a son who went through that exercise of asking, why are you alive, and what did you die for, or what would you die for? And he came up with some very interesting answers that were outside of what I would have come up with. But it helped his son in the discovery of his recipe for sustainable happiness. Candace, do you have that clip that we were talking about prior to the show? If you could pop that on, that would be super helpful. I want to show you two clips tonight from Arthur Brooks from different interviews. And I just want to let you know, I'm going to go much deeper into Dr. Brooks's writings, Dr. Brooks's philosophy, his scientific findings over future shows in the next 2 weeks or so. But I wanted to at least give you a taste of it tonight to tell you how much this impacted my enjoyment of the family time that I just had with my wife and my kids. So, Candace, I don't know if you're going to be able to pull that up. Let me see if I can do it on my end. Full disclosure, folks, I tend to be terrible at this stuff. So let me do my best. Bear with me. So I don't know if you were able to hear that. I hope you were able to see that interview, very 25-second clip with Dr. Brooks. But he talks about there are, if you look at everybody, what drives people to happiness is faith, family, friendship, and work that serves others. Now, faith does not mean got to be a churchgoer. It just means that you have to believe in something bigger than yourself, and whether that is the community that you live in, if it's believing in this community where we all work together to help advocate for others, it's believing in something bigger than yourself, right? Because if we think about ourselves first, we're narcissistic. So that's faith, and believing believing in family, and believing in your faith, your family, your friendship, and again, work that serves others. And that doesn't mean that you have to be, you don't have to be a nurse. You don't have to be a caregiver. You don't have to be someone that serves others at a restaurant, right? But it's about that your work has a positive impact on others. And so, maybe you're an accountant and you're helping people improve their lives, by finding financial stability, right? But it's finding that purpose of serving others. That's the point that that Dr. Brooks is really trying to emphasize. So, Candace, shoot me a message and just let me know if you think we are going to be able to share that next clip, because it's longer. It's about 3 minutes. But again, I really felt like it's from a completely different interview, but I felt like it really kind of gave a great baseline understanding of who he is and where he's coming from. So, should I give it a shot, Candace? Let's try. Were we able to get the sound on it? There we go. There we go. Oh, darn it. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to share this with you tonight. But again, I want to spend time in his research, because I think there's a lot of value for us as a community. And again, I know that I'm a broken record, but I always talk about how much I love and respect this community, because you don't have jealous people here. You don't have spiteful people here. You don't have a lot of bitching, a lot of complaining, right? This this community has time and again stepped up to help others, in service to others. And a great example, by the way. I want to call out my friend Lori. I consider her a friend now. Lori goes by the handle of AZDCS Oversight Group, Arizona. And I see she just came into the chat. Hello, Lori. Arizona Division of Child Services Oversight Group. And if you remember a month ago, we met Jessie. And Jessie is a new mom who had a newborn after she was put on blood pressure medication for preeclampsia, which is not uncommon for a first-time mom, especially one who's in her 30s, not her teens or 20s, right? But the medication that she was put on to control her blood pressure is known to cause false positives on drug tests for fentanyl. And so this mom who has never done fentanyl a minute in her life tested positive, had an explanation, but DCF in Florida still got involved, accused her of being a drug abuser, accused her of getting her child impacted by fentanyl. Didn't happen. And they did, after she was discharged home with her child, she engaged with an attorney who had the brilliant idea of doing hair testing, right? So as you look at a hair follicle, it takes about approximately 90 days for hair to grow and fall out. But if you look at the follicle, the hair, the root of the hair, that actually will show you everything that's happened to that human body for about 3 months. And in this 3-month evaluation of Jessie's health, there was no evidence of drug use. So they had labetalol prescribed for a known obstetrical complication. It caused the false positive that it's known to cause. DCF got involved. They had a test to show that it was a false positive. And yet, Jessie is still under the magnifying lens, because if you get on this registry, you're on it for 25 years. And that means Jessie can't be a chaperone at her kid's school, can't do a lot of the stuff with her child that each of us enjoyed and really kind of took for granted. So when I was introducing Jessie to the community, Lori from Arizona, who helps people in her state in similar situations, got involved. And Lori, I'm happy to say, was able to help Jessie find the path forward. Now, it's not over. DCF has not, withdrawn. We're not out of the woods yet. But Jessie was square in the woods, in the dark part of the woods, with no trail forward until Lori came along and helped her find that path. And so my gratitude to you, Lori, not only for all the work that you did on Jessie's behalf, but for the work that you do every day on behalf of families in Arizona who are in similar situations. And I see your comment now. Unfortunately, Jessie is not an isolated incident. Boy, oh boy. Before getting involved with the Kowalski family, I had zero insight into any of this. But the longer I'm around it, the more I see the absolute undeniable truth in what you're saying here, is that this is not an isolated incident. But that is the power of this group, the advocates in this audience. And that's why I love you. And that's why, this is such a terrific environment for me to come into. Um, so um, I just wanted to, I want to help this group find their happiness. Now, Candace, great work. Gothic Brina, great work. My understanding is that you have downloaded the video that I wanted to show. Group, stay with me. This is going to run 3.5 minutes, but I think it's super helpful.
This is something I do. Oh boy, do I ever do it. And it took me too long to figure this one out.
Here, Dr. Brooks.
When I was 50, I'm 59 years old. When I was 50, I found my bucket list from when I was 40. It was a classic thing. And on my birthday, I would make a list of my desires, my ambitions, and I would imagine myself, visualize myself consuming or experiencing these things, and it would fire me up and make me, kind of feel like a loser, quite frankly, because it was lowering my sense of satisfaction. I subsequently found out, and I looked at that list from when I was 40, and I checked everything off that list, and I was less happy
Oh, no.
at 50 than I was at 40. I'm a social scientist, so I thought to myself, obviously, I'm doing something wrong. What am I doing wrong? And basically, this is the problem. This is a neurophysiological problem and a psychological problem all rolled into one handy package. I was making the mistake of thinking that my satisfaction would come by having more. And the truth of the matter is that lasting and stable satisfaction, which doesn't wear off in like a minute, comes when you understand that your satisfaction is your haves divided by your wants. Haves divided by wants. That's the model. So, it's like I'll slow down because I know people watching you like, let me write that down. Haves divided by wants. You can increase your satisfaction temporarily and inefficiently by having more, or permanently and securely by wanting less. I thought to myself, so what does that mean? And the answer to that, what does that mean, is I need a reverse bucket list. Not that I'm not going to get nice things in my life, but I'm going to be consciously detached from them by going through the exercise of writing them down and crossing them out. So on my birthday now, my 59th birthday, a couple of months ago, I wrote down all my ridiculous ambitions and desires of money or whatever, power, ambition, admiration, all these things that I want from other people that we all want because we're human and Mother Nature wires us to accumulate the rewards that'll help us survive and pass on our genes. I got it. I know how evolutionary psychology works. And I know that these things are going to occur to me as natural goals, but I do not want to be owned by them. I want to manage them. I don't want them to be like phantasms in my limbic system managing me. I want to move the experience of these ambitions to my prefrontal cortex, which is my executive manager, the bumper of tissue right behind my forehead. And the way that you do that is by looking at each one of these ambitions and saying, maybe I get it and maybe I don't, but I'm going to cross it out as an attachment. And I'm telling you, Tim, I'm free.
So you found that to work?
Yeah, it works. It works. It works. It does not because you don't care about it, but because you're not attached to it in the same way. You've made the decision to have it not be a rootless desire, a ghost in your head. You've made it into something that you will consciously manage by literally experiencing that ambition in a different part of your brain.
So I know that sounded pretty complex, sounded pretty complicated, but I think what he was really kind of getting to is, a lot of times when we talk with our parents, when we talk with our elders, when we talk with our grandparents, heck, I'm getting older as I talk with my peers. It's kind of natural that we want for less. And listen, I just had this tremendous trip and we did some things that I never imagined in my life I would get to do. Right. Never thought I'd go to the Monaco Grand Prix. That's for damn sure. But we had the opportunity and we were able to take advantage of that opportunity. So we went and we had a beautiful day and a phenomenal experience. And, the racing is actually a little boring because there's no passing. It's such a narrow track. The cars have gotten so big that it's hard to, it's not a traditional race that way. But I got to tell you, the people watching and the atmosphere is next level. It was phenomenal. I mean, it was like you were surrounded by People magazine. It was so over the top cool. But the reality is that as exceptional as that was, again, what really made me the happiest was seeing that the plan that Patty and I loosely put together 20 plus years ago about how we wanted to parent our kids appears to at least given them the solid foundation that we wanted, and hopefully is setting them up for a lifetime of happiness and success, however they define it, right? It was interesting because my daughter, she's crazy. She's amazing. She's so wickedly creative, and she puts herself out there. It's remarkable how bold she is, how frankly confident she is, and it's funny because I frequently say I'm not sure she can cash all the checks that she writes, but she is not afraid to write them. And what I thought was really interesting was that one stop along the way in our trip this past month, was she was explaining to somebody that my dad delivered a lot of babies and he took care of a lot of women. And he said, if there was any one thing that I want for my daughter, is I want her to be confident. And she just threw up her hands and here I am. And it just made me so full of joy. It made me so happy to see, number one, she's confident enough to tell that story. Number two, didn't look like it, but she was listening. She was listening. All those times that I talked to her, talked about her, talked in front of her as her dad. And that makes me enormously grateful. So I'm going to wrap it up. One of the things that you'll hear over the next couple of weeks is again, I've talked about it a couple of times tonight about prioritizing time with my wife and my kids, and how much I enjoyed the time over the last several weeks. One of the things that I'm going to do, particularly over the summer when my kids are home from university, now they're working, doing internships, etc., but still they're here in the home. And so I'm really going to try to not do short form videos, but shorter forms. This meeting, we've been going for, I think, about 45 minutes now. And typically I will go hour and a half to 2.5 hours, particularly when I've got interviews. And, listen, I'm not saying we won't do longer programs, but at least for the foreseeable future, I'd like to keep these conversations shorter, more focused, and hopefully we'll find a format that you think really hits the target too. So again, I just want to say thanks for sticking around while I went disappearing. But I hope that this helps you to understand that I kind of like what I said during my trial testimony. If you remember, Mr. Hunter acted like he was kind of pissed off that I didn't spend the weekend reviewing all of the records that he turned over, the defense turned over on a Friday afternoon. And my response to him was, no, I was at the University of Florida being a father, not an expert witness. And so I didn't read all of that stuff. But I made that decision putting my family ahead of my job over that weekend, and said so under oath. And that's not a bad thing to do, right? One of the most important things that I think anybody can learn, and one of the things that really frees us up as grown-ups, is learning how to say no. And one of the simplest lessons that one of my mentors taught me is that if you if you say yes to your boss, your neighbor, your sister, your best friend, if you say yes to them, what does that make you say no to? Okay, so for instance, your boss says, "Hey, I'd really appreciate it if you could stay late and help me finish this. It'll probably take a couple hours." But you know that if you say yes to that request, you're going to miss your kid's soccer game or whatever. It makes the math a little easier to figure out in real time, right? And so, yeah, full stop. So there you go. So what I'm going to try to do is get back in the cadence, but again, keep these a little bit more focused and a little bit more on point. I do promise you, I will bring you more from Dr. Arthur Brooks, because again, he's been so helpful to me in understanding, kind of taking what Tal Ben Shahar started my understanding around happiness to be, and kind of taking it up a notch. So I will bring you more about his research, more about the recipe, because at the end of the day, we're all here to do good, but I'd like everybody to be happy. I'd like everybody to feel good about what they're doing too. So one of the other things I just wanted to point out, this past weekend was CrimeCon in Nashville. I did not attend. I was not asked to be a speaker. Some of my friends were, and I am hoping to have one or more of them back onto the show in the next week or so to talk about what happened there. I will tell you that initially there was talk about having a lot of, they invited Maya and Jack and Kyle to attend, because the appeal is kind of at its peak of the wave right now. Decided against that, but I think that there's still plenty that took place at CrimeCon. There was a big hullabaloo about the Gabby Petito case, which was here in Sarasota. Long story. She was murdered by her boyfriend out in Wyoming, I believe, and he ended up committing suicide. Blah blah blah. So anyway, there's just I'd like to hear personally, and I'd like to share with you what took place at CrimeCon. I do also want to thank Cindy Collins, who has gifted 5 memberships. And so if you're a member, then keep an eye out for the invitations to the next members only live streams, which again, Gothic Brina will be all over me now that I've talked about them. I know she's going to be pestering me until we get those scheduled. But really looking forward to our future conversations coming up. Thanks again for being back with me today. I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. And do remember, above all else, make sure that you are taking care of yourself so that we can take care of others. I will tell you without hesitation, I will tell you that I did not have this anywhere in my 5-year plan, Mr. Anderson.
That much I believe. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. Make sure that you take care of yourself so that we can be taking care of others. I'll look forward to seeing you in the coming days. Again, Kurt, Jules, thank you so much for making this a very dynamic conversation today. I'm grateful for your help.
Oh, kill me now. Please tell me this guy's doing some fraud and there's going to be like an insurance investigator or something.
So, Fred, thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you for sharing your insights and your experience, and can't wait to bring you back, my friend.
I'm looking forward to it. You won't have to try hard. This was a lot of fun. So thank you, everybody.
You hear that? I get the rest of the day off from doctor's orders. That's what I'm hearing.
I will write that prescription anytime for you, sir. And, this will not be our last conversation, especially if you can get me Samantha Lawrence on the show. Okay.
Well, maybe we'll see you before the hearing next week. But thank you for the honor of being your first guest, Joe. And
You bet.
all the kind words. Appreciate it.
Please, let's make sure that we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. Thank you so much.